We are live.
How are you doing?
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I had an accident and broke some. Don't tell this to my wife, but I broke some dishes in the kitchen,
Oh man,
and
like wedding dishes, special
no,
dishes.
not nothing serious, honestly. But one of them just completely shattered in a very magical way, very
Yeah.
dramatic. Um, yeah, and I just stepped on something here.
Oh man, do you need a few minutes to
I don't think so. I think it's fine.
cry?
To take it in. Yeah, I think
I
it's fine.
got you. At we once had this bottle of malt beer when I grew up, and I don't know why we kept it by the fridge, which didn't really make sense because the motor of the fridge got very hot. Anyways,
Mhm.
one day it like just popped and like a piece went flying through into like my mom's like leg. I remember it was like very traumatic to see like my dad like take it out. I was like, oh my god, she's gonna die. Uh, it was traumatic for me. But I'm glad to hear you're okay, that you survived.
I've survived. I think I'm good. Um, yeah, I had to
Good.
clean it up. It was a whole ordeal, but for a few minutes. But then yeah, we recovered.
It always becomes very intense once you have kids because like you're like I can't like I have to make sure like it's like sweeping and then washing and then a sweep and then a wash
Mhm.
to make sure that there's no glass.
Yeah.
Um, life was maybe I don't know. Somehow people survived.
Uh-huh.
Um, all right, so this was number 9. Yeah, this is where we were.
So,
That's where we stopped off.
yeah. So this was the last thing that we spoke about.
Right.
Mhm.
We're talking about different of these Puranayot. What's the word in English though? Scroll up for a second. All the way to the top. Sheva Minapirut, retributions, right? We talked about these 7 retributions. We spoke about like 5 of them over here.
Mhm.
And in number 9, I believe we speak about the last 2. Either way, we were going through them. And where we ended off speaking about the sword. And the sword had to do with also procrastination and justice and corruption and justice, right? Like this, and how that relates to the sword. The sword has to be swift. You have to be able to give a swift judgment. And here we're carrying it out either because they are corrupt or because they are manipulating the system. Either
Mhm.
way, obviously, the Torah and God come out against us because we want justice, even if it's diluted human justice, even if it's done through the prism of halacha. Nevertheless, it needs to be swift. We have to take obviously the all parties into consideration, make sure that they're not being harmed during this process as well.
Mhm.
And if we're talking about it's you could be talking about an individual as well, but again, generally we're talking about like societal moves over here. If we're in a place where the whole court system is in a space where like this is happening constantly, so that's obviously a very big problem. So you could look at Israel, for example, and say there's a tremendous amount of backlog with regards to verdicts, and that would be a problem. Like, how are you allowing for such a reality like this? So you'd be like, well, we don't have enough funds for the judges, and I'm sure there's excuses, but
Mhm.
as a culture, you're allowing for this to happen.
Yeah.
By the way, an answer that could be you have to have little small court systems, little small tribunals. Like, it could be that it's not necessarily just add more judges, but the point is like that kind of culture, that kind of society wants to find a resolution for something like that because you don't want to have that kind of state.
Yeah.
And we're moving now to Mishnah 9.
Mhm.
חיה רעה באה לעולם על שבועת שווא ועל חילול השם. גלות באה לעולם, this would be number 2, על עבודה זרה ועל גילוי עריות ועל שפיכות דמים, על שמיטת הארץ. ב4 פרקים הדבר מתרבה. ברביעית ובשביעית ובמוצאי שביעית ובמוצאי החג שבכל שנה ושנה. ברביעית מפני מעשר עני שבשלישית, בשביעית מפני מעשר עני שבשישית, במוצאי שביעית מפני פירות שביעית, במוצאי החג שבכל שנה ושנה מפני גזל ומתנות עניים. Let's start with, let's break this down for a second by the first part, because there's a very clear break over here about okay, carnage by wild beasts comes to the world for false oath and the desecration of God's name. Exile comes to the world. This is the second, the seventh retribution for idol worship, sexual promiscuity, murder, and the failure to leave the land fallow on the sabbatical year. Okay, and then we'll continue with the rest of it. Just I think there, once we go into the titith, right, we get really in there. We have to, right. Okay, so by the way, did I share a link? I want to make sure I did share a link.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm also looking down. I'm looking at the
your magical book
that you have. So I'm listening and looking down at the same time.
I know you told me that, but I look at it as complete disrespect. No, totally fine. So, Chayara Ba'ala Olam, the carnage, again, all the symbolism over here. So one would ask, like, why does the carnage by wild beasts, or specifically, why do wild beasts have anything to do with these two things of the false oaths and the desecration of God's name, right? So one attitude is when we're talking about beasts over here, we're talking about, it's again symbolic towards the world nations, right? Like the story we have, like in the book of Daniel. More relevant, obviously, would be Nazis, and even more relevant would be Hamas. I don't know if that's a nation necessarily, but the attitude is you get bombarded with nations that are acting in an animalistic behavior, so to speak. Okay. I don't know if your commentary has Hamas there, but it might have Daniel. Then there's another sense where using God's name, right? The desecration of using God's name or making a false oath, and obviously by your oath includes God's name in this case, is you are creating an imbalance, right? You no longer see God as a hierarchy, because if God was the top of the hierarchy, you wouldn't desecrate his name. And if you're willing to do so, then you yourself are confused with where you place yourself. And if you are yourself are confused with where your place is, and more that as a steward of God's image, right? God allows us to have a certain sort of hierarchy. It's God, it's man, then there's animals. According to the Maharal, there's different levels of this, right? There's domem, there's tzomach, but either way, under us is these animals that in creation with Adam, and then again with Noah, we were told that we are there to master them. But if we become the animals, so to speak, or we lose our sense of hierarchy by desecrating God's name, then those boundaries dissolve, and we are now exposed to the wild animals getting us. That could be both physically. However, you could say today, I live in Jerusalem with walls, right? So I'm not worried that I'm going to be attacked by wild, piranhas, even though that Hollywood likes making movies like that. But the idea is that, but even though those movies are symbolic of it too, right? Godzilla, the idea that like you were playing with nature or you were doing with things, and now the destruction comes upon you because you played with that delicate balance. So here too, this is sort of being described to you. This is what the Chayara is. This is the Godzilla, so to speak, that could come upon you.
Yeah, it's kind of like, this is not fully articulated in my head, but like there's something about when you place yourself at the same level of the animals, right? And you might want to do that because of like what you said, where you don't perceive another level above you, and that level above you doesn't say you're in a hierarchy where you're above the animals, so you see yourself the same as other animals, and that might give you in your framework different ideas or different kind of like guidelines of what you do. The trade-off of that is that suddenly you're thrown in a ring with the animals where you're kind of
Yeah, I like I like where you're going with this, because to me this rings to, like, today's cultural insanity with regards to, like, I identify as X, I identify as Y, right? If I no longer identify as uniquely human, or uniquely less about being part of Tselem Elohim, the image of God, right? Then if I could be an animal, or I could be a horse, or I could be whatever I want to be, then correct, it's limitless. There's no more boundaries, and once there's no more boundaries, you could quickly get to a place where you see these furries, right? People that want to be like walking around on a leash or dressed like a dog, and how far are you then from there being someone like shot one of these guys on the street? Why did he shoot this guy? Well, what do you mean? Because, like, he's acting like an animal, and I see him like an animal, and he talks like an animal. Then, like, I'm going to be treated like that animal. And suddenly, like, society breaks down, and you are exposed, like you said, you are now exposed to society in a sense where it's a lot more animalistic.
Yeah. And the commentary that here, Bartanura says, he takes it in another way similar, but he talks about, if you desecrate the name of God, or if you take the name of God, if you if you take that from above you, then it no longer protects you. So there's a protection aspect.
Yeah, but what is it protecting me from?
The wild animals, right? So
What do they discuss over there? How they see the wild animals?
well, here he references Midrash Shmuel. See also Meiri, the Torah, Chumash Bereshit, Genesis 4:14. Genesis 4:14. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's referencing wild animals, but like, but I would say the Meiri and the Medrash Shmuel. I would say the Medrash Shmuel probably talks about Daniel, I would assume, and the Meiri, I won't assume. I'm not sure what he mentions.
Yeah.
But just by the way, just as far as the false oath, it's not necessarily like you're making up a lie. It's also things that, like, you can't possibly keep, just like a technical thing,
right?
Like, I swear I'm never gonna blink again, and like that's just not gonna happen. So like it's just a ridiculous thing to say. But in a sense, you are creating an imbalance by creating this like false oath, right? You're creating a sense that it's not possible actually to do this, and that is a wrinkle in the matrix, so to speak. Okay, so then we said galut, right? Right? So exile comes to the world for idol worship, sexual promiscuity, murder, failure to leave the land, and follow the sabbatical year. So, right. So why are these? The fact that they tell us exile over here makes us question why are we being exiled for these things? Like, what's the issue with this stuff? So I would say, starting with, let's say, the easier one, which would be murder. Right, so this is the land of the living, right? We're talking about a place that we only want to be promoting life. So obviously, we're not interested in any death on it. And again, this is in a sense where we're talking about the whole society's acting this way, right? We're not talking about an individual over here necessarily. If one guy does murder, he needs to necessarily be exiled. Right, there could be a system. He could repent. There's a whole system to that. It's, again, if we're talking about a society where it's full of sexual promiscuity, or full of murder, or full of idol worship, then you deserve, or the land or the people deserve, in that sense, they deserve to be exiled. The fact that the sexual promiscuity thing, is like what we spoke about earlier, like knocking down those boundaries and like the problem you create to like that balance.
Right.
Secondly, we were told about, that we should be holy, kadoshim to you, and it's called the Holy Land, right? The fact that it's called Eretz HaKodesh is because it's a place where you're supposed to be sanctified, and we're supposed to elevate things and not be a slave to our physical and material wants and desires, right? There's a time and place for all these things through the Torah. However, we are not slaves to them. Rather, we elevate them. And complete improper sexual behavior or promiscuity is showing you a place where you are now a slave to that, and that is no longer something that you are orienting properly, so to speak. Then we get to the Shmitata Aretz, right? About like not working the land. So this too is a sense where like it's I know America is called the home of the free, but before that, before the very religious founding fathers thought about those terms, Israel is very much a place where we, the exile from Egypt, we speak about freedom, and we need to have a place where one could actually rest, one could actually contemplate and recharge. And the sense is that if you're going to force the land and the people on the land and all the religious ramifications from that, are you going to force people to work constantly? There's a sense where that's going to be a problem. That's not what the land is made for. The land is there to function also as an example to you as the individual and you as a collective, how to reset, how to make sure you're not bound into your ways necessarily. There's a place where the slave could go free, right? Debts are forgiven. So we want to be able to leave a place for that wiggle room, for their place to be placed for growth, for renewal.
Right. So it's so that it's interesting how that land specifically, Israel, is held to a different standard. Right. There's very specific laws that only relate to it.
And exactly for that reason, if you're not there cultivating that and recognizing that, then you don't belong in the land.
Right. It's kind of like it's interesting. I heard that you said that your sons also do, or your kids do jujitsu.
Yeah.
So they don't go. I assume they don't go with their shoes on the mats.
No way.
Exactly. So on the mat is like you have the mat, and then obviously you have all the walkways. But on the mat itself, it's held to a different standard. You never walk with any shoes on it, because obviously there, when it comes to the mat, because people are there all the time and their faces are in it and everything, they fight over it. So you need to be very careful from a hygienic perspective to not let those things happen. So again, it's a different standard there for different reasons, and I guess we can make the metaphor here in terms of the land of Israel as well.
Yeah, but I mean, even just as far as the mat and the shoes, when God tells Moses, or when God tells Joshua, right, to remove their sandals from where they're standing, because they're standing on hollow ground. There's a sense to that, which is not that your shoes are disrespectful, also, which is more about like you're not going to be fully connected to this. Mm-hmm. And there's a sense if you don't stop working, I understand the plow is like, but it's very much like touch grass. Right. Yeah. But there needs to be a year's worth of just be in the nature, be with the family, be with the people, see them don't see them as the person I loaned money to, or the person that took money from me. Rather, see them as humans, individuals, your fellow man, the one you want to love, the one you want to do more for, the one you want to assist.
Yep.
Then we have the idol worship, which seems, I guess, sort of obvious, right? But as Rashi says, when we speak about hear, O Israel, Shema Israel, talks about how that now it's the God of Israel, and one day will be the God of the nations as well, right? This is very much like the mission statement that one day God's name will be unified fully. But for the Israelites and in the land of Israel, it must be only one God. And again, this is, you could see this difference where God is extremely intense about any idol worship in the land. However, the prophets almost never speak to the people of the world about idol worship, right? They tell them, don't steal, don't murder, don't this, go away from your wicked ways. But their attitude is, when Jonah goes to, like, it's never telling them, stop with your bowing down to the idols. And this is because there's an understanding, as we spoke about many times, where towards the Israelites and towards the Gentiles with regards to their relationship to God at certain times in history, and their mediators that they needed, or their representative tools that they needed to engage. And God is sensitive to that, and even the halakha is sensitive to that. But specifically also here in Israel, which is my land, it needs to be very clear that there's only one way of worship, which to me, which is direct. Outside the land, for Israelites, obviously, for Jews, Hebrews, is no bueno. For non-Jews, they're during development. You know what I mean? They listen to Ra for right now. Ra's the main god, so that's how they see me right now. Okay, it's all in different levels, but it can't be happening in the land. It can't be happening in the land itself.
Right.
So, okay. So now this brings us into, but wait, is there anything on your commentary on your end?
There is an idolatry. Avodah just says that we can also think about the idolatry, for example, and think about how that is related to anger or arrogance, right? Anger being something that is also equated to idolatry, and arrogance against something that's also equated. So we can take these forms, and on the other things that it says as well, try to think about when we think about character refinement as well, the things that would lead us out of this world, and how do we want to avoid them. And that's
lead us out as well, how we want to avoid them. I hear that. Okay, right. So idol worship, like anger, these are, if you allow yourself to be controlled by this, you are removing yourself from this world, so to speak. You are exiling yourself. Okay.
Right, and obviously, I mean, that's related to the second exile, right? Like the Bet Mikdash Sheni, the second temple, it was because of Sinat Chinam. So,
yes.
So hate. I mean, it's related to anger.
Hate also, not anger, but all-consuming anger towards another. Correct.
Right. So it could lead more than just you being in exile. Yeah.
I should mention it's Jacob's stream channel, which we appreciate his generosity. So Zionism should be questioned. Having said that, the Maharal, the way he defines exile, is not in the land and spread around like the world, right? So you can't be in the land, you have to be spread around, and you're not ruled by others, right? That's how he defines exile. So I'm just doing the reverse. If you're back in the land and you're not spread around and you're not ruled by others anymore, some would say you are no longer in exile. I don't know how Jacob wants to interpret that, right? It's nothing religious, nothing mystical. It's just purely political.
Mm-hmm.
The Maharal doesn't talk about anything about if Mashiach, he just says those are the three. Yeah. So anyone that wants to interpret that is welcome to. Okay. We're continuing with this second section over here, which is there are 4 time periods when plagues increase. On the 4th and on the 7th years of the sabbatical cycle, on the year following the 7th, and following the festival of each year, on the 4th year, because of neglect of the tithes to the poor, that must have been given on the 3rd year. On the 7th, because of the tithes to the poor, that must be given on the 6th. On the year after the 7th, because of the produce of the sabbatical year. On the following each festival, because of the robbing of the poor of the gifts due to them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about, again, the practice of bringing things to the temple, giving some of your produce to the poor. There's a whole process that we spoke about last week as well. And we're being told over here, so I'm going to read this in Hebrew, Mipnei Maaser Ani Shabash Lisit. This is what I was supposed to give the tithes to the poor that I do on the 3rd year, right? So instead of separating the second tithes that I have that I'm supposed to be eating in Jerusalem, I gave that tithes to the poor. Now, the idea is the owner is obligated to not wait until the poor comes to him, right? The poor are aware that this is going on, that this is the time of the year, but now I'm not supposed to wait for them to knock on my door. Rather, I'm supposed to proactively go out, find him, separate and find the poor to give it to. Right. And if I'm not doing that, that's a problem, right? And it's also a problem that this is not considered so holy necessarily to do this. I'm not bringing this to the temple. I'm just giving it to the poor man. And because it's not held in such high regard, some people neglect it. So we're being told by the Torah that one is, obviously, you should be reminded that this is something that you need to be proactive about. Right? We're not asking the poor to come to us. We are going to them. This is not a burden for us. This is an opportunity, and we need to look at it as such. If we look at it as a burden, then it's something that we're going to neglect. You could say it's a burden to go to the temple. If you go like, okay, no, going to the temple is like a big deal. I'm there right now. I'm seeing the high priest. I'm going to do my dues. But now once I leave those walls, I'm not feeling as inclined anymore. So this is the same exact thing. On the 7th year, I was supposed to give a portion to the poor from the 6th year, and I neglect to do though, again, because it's not built in. I see this as a burden and not as a privilege, or maybe privilege is the wrong word, but this is a necessity, and I would say it's a healthy process to partake in. Not just for as a society, but also for yourself like we spoke about last week about giving, right? We're living in a world where we get, right? So then we feel inferior because we can never give, right? We're only getting, and then God gives us the opportunity to give, right? To be mini gods, so to speak. Correct. And then we get to b'motzei shvi'it mipnei perot shvi'it. So what is it in English?
Motzei shvi'it.
On the 7th, on the year after the 7th, because of the produce of the sabbatical year, right? So the produce of the sabbatical year, what I'm supposed to do at that time is I make it hefker. Hefker means it's
leave it.
Sorry?
You leave. Oh no, this is the things that you leave for the poor.
No, that's something else. Yes, correct. Hefker is one of the things that I do, which I could leave it. I could leave it. Basically, it's first comes, first serves. First dibs, basically, so to speak. You could come, you could take from what you want. I now leave it open for everyone. There's for example, if I have a garden, I have a fence, and I have cucumbers growing in my garden, and some of them are in my fence, and some of them are hanging out to the other side of the street. The ones that are hanging out into the public are considered hefker. They're open for the public to take and eat because they are no longer in my possession. They are out in the open. So here we're being told that in the 7th year, the year after, at the end of the 7th year, we are supposed to take this produce and allow it to be free for all to take. And again, this is obviously aimed towards the poor. And then we speak about matanot aniyim. So the Chag we're talking about, the festival we're talking about over here is Sukkot, which is also called Chag HaAsif, right? This is part of like the harvest. This is happening during the harvest period where I'm getting all these things together, all my produce from that like I've accumulated over the last season. I'm bringing it all from the field into my house. And during this season, the Torah tells us that we have different opportunities to give to the poor. One of it was, like we just said, it was hefker. Another one is called shichecha, as in when I take my bundles, some are bound to fall out, and I need to be conscious to leave those and like to forget those, so to speak, and not turn around and go looking for them so the poor could come get them. And again, the idea is not to turn around. So if the poor come out, they don't have to see us looking at them gathering these stuff. We're supposed to let them go. There's something called pe'ah, which is you leave the corners of the field. You don't collect those, and those are left for the poor. So these are different opportunities we have to be doing this. However, we're being told one is not doing so, right? We're in a society where this is not happening, or we're people that are not doing this. And the reason we call this like robbery, because ultimately, like we said, while yes, the land is mine, so to speak, and the produce is mine, so to speak, it is mine. I'm being blessed with it because God gave me life, and God gave me the opportunity to be in this place and be in this land and cultivate these fruits. And the reason he's giving me and allowing me to do all these things is because I then built into that system is me enjoying those fruits and me being able to take a bite and enjoy that from that neuron all the way to the fact it's as important for the poor to get his. And for that's how the system actually is supposed to work. And that's why it's really at that period, at that time, as far as God's concerned, that is really the poor's. So you are robbing, even though you could say, but legally, I'm not robbing anything because this is my property. Obviously, God doesn't see it that way in this case.
Right. Yeah. There's also an interesting commentary here about different ways that you can look at manipulating the system of like the robbing of the poor is not only necessarily that you would just not leave the corner for them, or that you would not, when things fall down, you would pick it up. It's also, you could be somebody that leaves the corner and then he has his select poor person that collects everything from them. That is also considered robbing the poor from what they deserve, because you're giving it only to select few, or maybe you've even made an arrangement with this person where they can collect it, and then you can do whatever that you want with them. So it just mentions.
Interesting. So you're saying that not only right, so it doesn't have to be as on the nose with regards to they're stopping the poor from getting theirs. Rather that it's supposed to be a natural, and we're also called shichecha, right? You are forgetting this in the field. Now, if you start putting intentionality into this, which is you have a system, when someone comes and they sign up to a sheet and they get their stuff and this is the guy, then that's not supposed to be, well, I don't know. It's interesting that they would say that, because wouldn't you want charity to be in a certain sense systematized, where it could be.
You might be able to systematize it, but if you are intentionally preventing people from going.
Well, no, because you gave an example. I'm just talking this out with you. You gave an example where I could say I'm giving to these 4 people. These are my 4 poor people.
Right?
Isn't necessarily a problem. I don't know. There's the 4 people that are closest to me. I get to see them. I build a relationship with them. These are the 4 people I want to help.
Interesting. Yeah. So I mean, there might be a thin line there where, if this is something that belongs to the poor, right? Because this is one reason why it's called robbing the poor, because
everyone should be able to come.
Even before you had it, God already said this is for the poor. So you just need to perform the action, and then you do your part of the deal, and then God, with his kindness, also says this is a gift that you're giving them. But the fact is, it does belong to them. So you trying to limit or somehow, it makes it a very tricky. So so this is something
I appreciate that, though. I think that's true, because you might have a great field and you're like, listen, I found 3 great poor people that they come and take their stuff, but they don't mess with the roses and they don't stink and they don't make a whole issue, right? And I don't want Skid Row bums coming and getting stuff. I know I'm definitely helping people, right? So that should be enough. And now we're saying the Torah is coming saying, no, Skid Row needs to be able to come and take theirs too. Now, obviously, the Torah doesn't want your field to be ransacked, right? You have a lot to take your own precautions, but the idea is that you can't have a VIP pauper situation going on.
Yeah. So there's a story here that they share by Rabbi Zusha. Do you want me to read this?
No, go ahead. Read it. Take it.
A man was accustomed to giving money to Rabbi Zusha of Anipoli. A man who was accustomed to giving money to Rabbi Zusha of Anipoli became very rich. He was advised by friends that if he gave money to Rabbi Zusha's master, the Maggid of Mezrich, he would presumably grow even richer. The man then ceased his donations to Rabbi Zusha and instead began giving to the Maggid. When he subsequently lost all of his wealth, he turned to Rabbi Zusha for an explanation. When you gave to me without looking for someone greater, Rabbi Zusha explained, heaven treated you the same way. They did not look for someone more deserving than you upon whom to bestow wealth, but when you became selective and chose to give only to a big name, heaven did the same and found someone more worthy than you upon whom to bestow wealth. So this is kind of from the other side a little bit, but yeah.
Those chassids. Andrew, we're going to move on. Something to share, ask, complain, demand.
How you chilling?
How am I chilling? I'm chilling. I'm groovy, dude. I'm gnarly.
That's different.
Okay. Alva, someone was asking me today, a client was like, what does sababa mean? I was like, groovy. I was like, I don't even know if people use that word. So like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sababa. I was like, cool.
Mhm.
How would you explain sababa?
Yeah, sababa. Groovy might be a little too too old. Yeah, it's very hard to translate sababa. All good? I don't know. That doesn't sound as nice.
Sababa. I guess it's all good, but like with a lot more love. I guess I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
and you could use it also like in
Sababa is like is also
formal settings.
yeah. It's a sababa is like not an atmosphere. How do you call it? A vibe, or it's something more spatial as well. I feel like more 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 arenic than agentic.
Okay.
Andrew likes that one.
Um,
I think Andrew likes that.
Sababa. It's a very good Israeli word, Hebrew word. If you guys like it, sababa, samech, bet, hey. All right. Arba midot ba'adam.
These are good.
Haomer. I'm sorry.
These are good. These are my favorite. Some of my favorite.
האומר שלי, שלך ושלך שלי. עם הארץ. שלי, שלי, ושלך, שלך. זו מידה בינונית. ויש אומרים, זו מידת סדום. שלי שלך ושלך שלך חסיד. שלך שלי ושלי שלי רשע. There are 4 types of people. One who says, what is mine is yours, and what is yours is mine, is a boor. One who says, what is mine, and what is yours is yours. This is a median characteristic. Others say that this is a character of the sodomite. It's a big change right there, big jump. One who says, what is mine is yours, and what is yours is a chassid, a pious person. And one who says, what is mine, and what is yours is mine, is wicked. Beautiful. Okay, so, sheli, shelcha, sheli, shelcha, v'shelcha, sheli, am haaretz. What mine is yours, and what yours is mine is a boor. Right, so this is the reason we're calling this guy a boor. One is because obviously there's no concept of property rights over here, no private property, everything's shared. This is very much like communal living sort of attitude over here. It's also problematic because like maybe you could decide to give up your own possessions. How are you deciding for other people that they need to give up their other possessions, their own property? Like how are you making this decision for other people that they're now ownerless? As we know, everything belonging to everyone is what in other words, it's ish hayashar be'einav ya'aseh, right? Everyone does what's in their own eyes, as we see during the time of the judges, and this results in complete chaos and madness. You can't have no rules, no hierarchies. Everyone's doing whatever they want all the time. Now, there's a deeper sense over here, which is this is a person who he doesn't really want what he owns. He wants what other people wants, right? This is very much like the grass is greener sort of attitude. And because of like we have like a etiquette in the world or how we're supposed to behave. He acts this way because he believes this is how one is supposed to act, but really he's very much looking for what the other has, right? His mind is really not, he feels it's not worth anything, or it's actually not worth anything. He's really a lot more interested in the yours. So, let's build bridges, let's get in together, let's move together. But ultimately he wants to share that one purse with you because he doesn't actually feel that what he has to offer is really relevant. Otherwise, he wouldn't necessarily give it.
Right. So this is an assumption that you're making, right, about this person.
I mean, I believe this is also an interpretation, but
no, I'm totally good with that because I mean that kind of like it's interesting to me when I was like studying some of the Talmud, like going through one of the Bavas, which is kind of like these kind of laws of ownership, very very surface level, but that it really cared sometimes about how easy would a rule be to exploit, or worrying about like these how people might be how people might be exploiting something or making sure that it's just hard enough for them to lie, but not impossible, because obviously you can't it's very hard to plan for that, but to make it harder for them to lie or make the stakes a little higher. So this is kind of like, in one way, what you're saying, correct me if you're wrong, is that looking at something this way is the probability that somebody is trying to do this in order to exploit something is very high. So this is why we're saying they're likely to be a boor.
They're a boor. First of all, what you're saying resonates. So he's a boor because the mindset of the grass is greener is a wrong one. It's a bad attitude. It's a wrong way of thinking of the world. Number one.
Right.
Number two, it's because, like what you were saying, that, well, he's also a boor because, like we said, communal living and just sharing, that doesn't actually work. Right. That's not, we still see that, like, there is some level of sharing, right? Like that happens like at my dining room table, right? At that scale, I could share, right? I could be more of a communist inside my house. However, once we scale out, it's no longer really feasible and possible. So again, it's a boor attitude to think that that's actually feasible, that that's possible to be doing that.
Right.
And like, now, lastly, what you were saying about like it could be manipulative because we assume the first two, then we're being told like, don't be fooled by the fact that he's offering his, right? Because his offering his, we know already in version 1 and 2, what we said earlier, that doesn't really work. And so why someone would offer this, either he's a complete fool or he's taking advantage of you.
Right.
I was going to say something that, okay. That mindset though, it's a little different than what I'm going to say, but still relevant, where you were saying you're reading in the Gemara, in the Talmud, and it's telling you like, sort of look at human nature and assume the worst in a certain sense. We have a concept in halacha called mar'it ayin, right? So I'm doing something that is technically permitted. However, because it's going to be confusing for others, right? They might not understand. They might think I'm actually doing something prohibited. Don't do so, because we don't want, people to be thinking XYZ. They may not understand, right? Like an example of this would be, we can't eat milk, pork, obviously. What if I make kosher pork? How can I eat it? So the question would be like, yes, but no one knows that there's kosher pork yet. So they're definitely going to think that you're eating real pork. And then that's a problem.
Right. I was reading about the lab meat.
The lab grown meat. Right.
It could be kosher technically, but then I think even the Rav Lau,
he actually came out saying that it's kosher and it's parv, I believe.
Right, but he did he say, or some other people said that marit ayin might be the problem, that might be the issue to consider.
So right, then the question would be like, but like it used to
How
be
can you set it up that it doesn't.
It used to be that if someone's eating drink in observant households, it used to be like you wouldn't see someone drinking coffee after the meal, like the Shabbat day meal, which was usually meat. Because how could somebody be drinking coffee? Then they started coming out with Israel got almond milk and this kind of milk and that kind of milk. So they used to be like, okay, but you have to have the milk on the table, because only if the milk is on the table will someone be able to see and know for sure that it's not milk. And now we got to a point where like it's popular enough where the assumption is, no, you're obviously drinking some sort of kosher milk. I'm not going to assume the worst. I was just going to mention, like anecdotally, in the Ethiopian tradition, right? There is a tremendous amount of restrictions that they don't have, because they never took a left, basically, where it got to, we should assume the worst in people. Their attitude is like, but why would he do that? Like, why would he lie? And this, because they took that opinion of how to look at human nature, all these restrictions became irrelevant to them. So it's quite fascinating how just like that kind of mindset, like as you were mentioning in the Talmud, that we feel like that's sort of like baked into the cake. Oh, assume the worst, but why?
Wait, that's a little confusing, because where did the Ethiopian tradition break off? Did they break off before the Talmud?
First temple.
Right. Okay. Well, if you have an interesting article to dive into that, let me know. I'd be interested.
Oh, there's a fantastic. You could look. There's a rabbi named Shalom Sharon. That's his Hebrew name. He's a rabbi from Gush. He wrote 2 books. One of them is called Gniza Chaya, the Living Treasure Trove. And there's a few things of him on YouTube as well. Fascinating. He basically, his claim is that, like, I understand that, like, Judaism, the way we see it today, that won out. However, we have a tradition from First Temple period, post, like, after we were exiled, and, like, at the very least, that should be part of the canon and respected, as least to look at it as, you know, in extreme measures. For example, according to them, females can circumcise, and they learned this from what happened with Moses' wife Tzipporah on the way back to Egypt. She circumcises the boys.
Meaning they can be mohels, meaning they can perform the circumcision. They
can perform the circumcision. Not correct. If I said they could be circumcised, I stand corrected. Thank you. They can perform circumcision, which we do not believe in, because they are not obligated in circumcision. Hence, they can't perform circumcision.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, an example of that would be, let's say I'm stuck in a place where, you know, I don't have a mohel. So you could be like, there is a version in our history where this was done. So anyways, you can read into that.
Sounds good.
All right. So now we spoke about our Amaret, Sheli, Veshelcha Shelcha, Zoi Midah Benonit, V'yesh Omrim Zoi Midat Stom. Which one who says what is mine and what is yours is yours. This is the medium characteristic. Or we go extreme and we come and say it's a sodomite characteristic. So the medium characteristic is sort of easy to understand, right? I keep with me, you stay with you, and, you know, we're all good. So it's just neither here nor there. However, the focus on why we see this as the sodomite characteristic. So just a little background. First of all, we are taught by our sages that the people of Sodom were very, very into the measurements, the sizes, the exact portions of everything. No one should get too much. No one should get too little. They were very nervous about Canaan, the land of Canaan. They're aware of the fact that they have droughts and they don't have a Nile, and they have all different types of issues. And they were very nervous that the Canaanites are going to come down to them and ask for things and need things. And they had this rule that you could only give them money, but you can't give them any food, right? Only give them money. Don't give them any food. We don't want them feeling that they could come to us and take from us. Really, what's ours is ours, and what's theirs is theirs.
Right. They had a very closed immigration process. Policy. Nobody came in because they really wanted to guard. They didn't want any immigrants coming in without money and building.
They wanted to build that wall. And there's stories of, if you were too tall, they would like shorten you. And if you were too short, they're like, they had an exact measurement of what who could come in, what their characteristics are of like who is a good immigrant, so to speak. Because they would only give the person money. They would never give him food. And everyone would mark their money. Ben gave this coin. Chazi gave this coin, because the guy would walk around all Sodom and he wouldn't be able to collect any food, right? Only had his money. And as he would die, the people of Sodom would come and then take back their money, and each one would know where their money, who had what, right? That's all they care about. That's what we're being told about Sodom. So the attitude over here is one that sees wealth, right, is everything. And he has a very difficult, he has a very hard time parting with his money, right? Is someone that eventually will get to a place of that kind of mindset. Now, as an individual, that's one thing. As a collective, as a society, if that's the mindset, eventually you get to a place where you become so extreme, where it's not just the money, it's hurting people, killing people, completely losing all sense of like the hierarchy of morality, so to speak.
Yeah, it's interesting here in the commentary. It says, one who only acts selfishly is average, Benoni, but one who turns selfishness into a philosophy and encourages others to be selfish displays the characteristic of Sdom.
Gordon Gekko, greed is good, right? That was a big line from his movie Wall Street in the 90s. And that's what like things like people in Wall Street would like quote. And like, I mean, you could see that is obviously, that is a Saddam characteristic, right? Saddamite characteristic with regards to how we see these bailouts, how we see like the banks deal with what they deal with. It's very problematic. Very, very, very bad attitude. One that needs to be rooted out. Drain the swamp. Okay. Onwards. We are now at the pious man. Sheli shelcha b'shelcha shelcha. Chassid. What is mine is yours, and what is yours is yours. Is the chassid, is the pious man. Right? So he has, if like we said, the first guy was like no concept of property rights. He has no a desire for properties. He actually sees his possessions, a true pious man sees his possessions as a means to assist others, right? He understands that that like good traits ultimately are preferable than money, and helping people using your money or using your planes or using your stuff to facilitate chesed and doing good things. These are the acts that someone buys. That's not necessarily thinking of, what he needs and what he wants. And we should make clear, though, that a chassid is not someone that's supposed to just give up anything and make himself poor, right? We're obviously being told that you can't give so much charity that you yourself become needy, right? That's one of the prerequisites. So we're not talking about someone over here that's just giving. You could have millionaires or billionaires, which are still considered a chassid, right? If they know how to use their wealth and use their assets as means of generating good stuff in the world. We should also, I would say, mention over here that all this openness is, in theory, like if we were talking about the commune, right? And we said that leads to chaos. Here, we're saying mine is yours and yours is yours, right? Which is just like this giving. And you could ask, in this level of giving, don't you sort of lose yourself? So the chassid also knows how to give without compromising his inner self. And there's a sense of the true pious man knows the delicate balance and dance between the self and society, and how I could give for myself and be part of society, but also maintain me as an individual. And that changes, like we spoke about this once during times of war, right? Which is during times of peace, the Torah is to live by, to live through, to be as an individual, but see yourself as helping, assisting the collective by also working on yourself. When it's times of war, then you shift to seeing yourself as part of this, as the society, as part of the collective. And this is worth dying for, so to speak, even at a certain level, because I'm now part of them. And you have to dance between these two things. And the chassid, the pious one, knows how to do that dance.
Right. Yeah, and obviously this is very hard. And it kind of reminds, I just heard a story secondhand that somebody was telling about how there was somebody that was very righteous, was a chassid, and he was he gave everything that he had, and he worked at a job, and they offered him this is a real story. They offered him a promotion, and he didn't take it. He didn't want any more money. He just continued to give and give and give. And this person that was telling this story said how he had to deal with the daughter of this very righteous person and her bitterness towards her father, because she didn't have any shoes to wear. She did not live. Her childhood was very hard because of the fact that her father was so giving.
Right. So I would say the father in that case is acting piously. He's not a pious person.
Right. Yeah. That was kind of like what that person was.
And that's not to say he's not a very good person, and all those things can be true. Just like you said, if you're dealing with now, you are now afflicting pain and anguish onto your own daughter, right? Which is like, as far as your hierarchy of taking care of your responsibilities, right? We say, Aniyei ercha kodem, the poor people of your town are first. If it's the people of your town are first, then clearly the people of your house, right?
Yeah,
come first, or the people of your building come first. Lastly, we have the wicked man, shelcha sheli, yours is mine, b'shili sheli, and mine is mine. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine, right? So here, this would seem quite obvious why this man's wicked. I should just mention that the wicked man too, the evil man over here, is also aware of that inner wisdom we were talking about, of like knowing how to protect your inner self from the others, right? It's not necessarily just from the not wanting to give. It's someone that also is not interested in sharing any of his personal inner space with the others. He's very aware of what that is to cultivate inner self, a healthy ego, all those things. Yeah. I don't want to share that with anyone. I don't want to give that to anyone. I'm not interested in their stories, right? I want theirs, and I want to keep what's mine. And that obviously is like a very, very, it's even worse than just being, let's say, your classic storybook villain, whether it's someone that knows better, that still acts in that way, in a complete selfish, wicked way.
Yeah.
I would also mention that, like, the reason this kind of attitude is also considered wicked is because someone with this kind of attitude, which is mine is mine, it's yours is mine, is going to feel very comfortable making kosher, thou shalt not covet, and thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not envy, and thou shalt not lust, because all these things immediately, like, that's, if yours is mine, then I'm lusting, then I'm coveting. I'm already built in. That attitude is already puts me into a very problematic place with regards to prohibitions, sins that are clearly marked out in the Torah. So that mindset is only has one path, which is no bueno.